brand guy. I love building brands, but the Bev Alk system is set up because of its three-tiered system of suppliers, distributors, and retailers to heavily favor incumbents, and almost to suffocate new entrants. Especially, Albert Einstein said the definition of insanity is doing the same thing as everyone else and expecting a different result.
Yep.
And that's literally what the on-premise rock fight is. Everybody thinks that they have to elbow grease their way into a bunch of bars around them, get on the back bar, get on the menu, and then hopefully that makes one of the big distributors pay attention to them. And even with that, the big distributors won't actually do their job. So they'll have to put their own, the fledgling company will have to pay for ambassadors and all this stuff. And then hopefully they'll get bigger and rinse and repeat. All the while, they're hemorrhaging money per case. And you'll get 3 to 5 years in, you'll have spent quite a bit of money, and you won't really know if you have product market fit. A lot of these big companies that made it, like Tito's and Hendrix and those got acquired, they were in market a lot longer than people think.
Yeah. Well, let's just say, not to cut you off, but let's be clear on that, because that's an important factor. Tito's, after 15 years, people are like, look at this new guy in town. Where did he come from? Well, he's been doing this for 15 years. Same thing happened to us at Kettle One. They were around for 12 years at about 100,000 cases, and everybody thought we were new, trying to go up against Grey Goose. But it's like, no, we've been pushing for 12 years. So I didn't mean to cut you off, but it's so important for people to realize that in this industry. This is a game of patience and time and energy, and it can cost you a lot of money.
It can. And if you want that money from Goat Rodeo, by definition, you better have a really unique piece of intellectual property, whether that's packaged or liquid, or a very unique go-to-market, and be digitally native, and et cetera, because we invest in companies that we hope by definition can bypass that here we go, we're going to do the same thing, we're going to try and get in bars as an awareness vehicle, and then we're going to try and get in off-premise to make our money.
Yeah. And I want to touch on this too. It's funny how you start talking to somebody in the industry and you start having all these flashbacks. I literally had a senior buyer at one of the top distributors tell me, Jim, your product's great. It's probably one of the best products, but there's no hook here. I'm like, what do you mean there's no hook? Like I got all of my reasons, right? But distributors they're notoriously looking for the easy route to market. Who's your celebrity? What's your gimmick? Is this fluorescent? Like, they really want this thing to sell itself without them having to lift too many fingers. And no offense to them, they got their hands full. But I'm going, I don't have a gimmick. I've got an incredible product, and you just endorse it, but yet you don't really want to sell it because there's no gimmick. Literally.
Yeah, it's one, and you again, you hit the nail on the head. It's not that distributors are lazy. These guys are really hardworking. But what they do is promise case sales to all of their clients. But when you add them up, it is more than how much that distributor actually sells.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit of a shell game. So we tend to really focus both on, true D2C, I said capital case D2C, which is possible in wine. But we also do a lot of focus on lowercase D2C, which is what appears to the consumer to be direct to consumer. It might still have to wiggle its way through the three-tiered system, but your go-to-market uses can be social media, Google AdWords. And what I'll just say is, and I sometimes I appear like I'm antagonistic for the three-tier system. I'm not. I'm a capitalist. Anybody who has carved something out where they're making money, more power to them. But I fundamentally believe that as technology lowers friction everywhere, the entire world conspires to get products from the people who make them to the people who want them. Mm-hmm. That's we have FedEx, we have DHL, we have UPS, we have Shopify, we have Amazon, and this notion that is literally a vestigial tale of the prohibition of the three-tiered system, and the idea that 30% of the value should accumulate to distribution and 20 to 30% of the value should accumulate to bricks and mortar, to me, is crazy. And if you told it to anyone in Silicon Valley for clothes or toothpaste or shoes, they'd tell you you're crazy too. And so there's just no way that this can stand up to the test of technology and the test of time. And our whole point as a fund is to get in before that happens.
Sure. Well, it makes a lot of sense. So obviously you're passionate about what you're doing now. Is there any changes on the horizon? I won't put you in that corner.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I don't think I understood the question.
Well, I said any changes in the horizon for you, any career shifts?
Well, I for me, anything in BevAlc that is a interesting business model is what I want to be involved in. So, I'm starting to dig in very deep to some work with the governor of the Virgin Islands on potentially doing some public-private partnerships that, frankly, can help an island that I've fallen in love with, and they need more revenue, and can also build a very, very effective new spirit brand. And then I'll be able to use all the other bits and pieces that I've pulled together as a function of Goat Rodeo that are essentially all these new ways of go-to-market, and hopefully use them for good. And in addition to that, Jim, we obviously share of buzz is a very big word around my offices. We do invest in cannabis, because I do think that's coming down the pipeline in a big way, and we want to be there before it happens.
Yeah, well, and you talked about a big B2C. We in cannabis, I've got 3 big projects in the hopper that I consult for. We hope that those waters are smooth as well, because there's no reason why it shouldn't operate just like any other business. Realistically, getting the consumer the products that they want to get in the way that they want to get them.
Yeah, we no longer need clipboards to assess tax. You don't have to go check off we've got really good stuff for that. So my hope for cannabis is that, similar to the way that China never had to lay copper, they just went right to sell. That hopefully cannabis cannot get bogged down in this idea of a distribution tier, and let's just get to where alcohol is going to get eventually anyways, which is everyone's going to buy it direct to consumer. Like we have the ability to check IDs. That's not the end of the world. Yeah. You want to know who makes it sound like the end of the world? Is the distribution tier. Sure. I was online looking up lobbying numbers, and in 2019, the distribution tier spent $30 million lobbying. Wow. There's a reason for that. Wow. And that's to put it in perspective, the oil industry spent like 100. So, I mean, you're gonna tell me that BevAlc is only 1/3 the size of the oil industry? It's not. It's because it's a cartel, and they want to protect it. And hopefully that's what technology is for, is to bust cartels.
Well, I'll tell you what I loved seeing out of COVID as well. I'm an optimist, so all the great stuff that came out of COVID are still coming out. I've noticed them all. The fact that so many laws were temporarily changed so you can do to-go cocktails from on-premise restaurants, we should have been doing that a long time ago. Why do I got to feel like a criminal because I poured the rest of my cocktail in a to-go cup because I didn't want to drink it all at the bar. I want to drink it when I get home or something. Yeah. You have, some of the best mixologists in the world are working at bars, making some incredible cocktails that might not ever be experienced because somebody doesn't want to drink it in a bar. They would rather drink it at home. To-go drinks is the best thing ever.
And you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. Yeah. Because all these businesses, they generate tax revenue. And the last thing that local regulators want is all these bars to go out of business. Yeah. But I'm with you. This notion of, how do you bring the best home and how do you scale the best? Because the difference between a good cocktail and a great cocktail is ambiance and who's behind the stick and all that stuff. But the difference between a mediocre or bad cocktail and a great cocktail is just fresh ingredients. Sure. So we're invested in one company called Drinksmith, where they partner with some of the best bartenders in the country. Let them create the recipes, and then they have a patented a process that allows them to deliver fresh, through a chill chain cocktails in people's home. So now you can have Bad Birdie's cocktails at home, or you can have Cocktails by Hawk at home, and it's great, because it's the bartenders that should be celebrated, not the bars. The bartenders are what made employees only cool, not the space.
Yeah, well, and like we just talked about, as a consumer, I should be able to get what I want when I want it from whatever means are available. My friend owns a great restaurant in Flagstaff. It's called El Capitan Restaurant. They make one of the best margaritas I've ever had. They call it a Lily. It's not one of those fresh ingredient deals either, man. It's just an incredible margarita. And I said to Grant during COVID, because they were allowed to do the to-go drinks, I'm like, you got to figure out how to send me one of those. but we're talking about crossing a whole bunch of state lines into control states. Like, yeah, that's going to be pushing it pretty hard. But why not, man? Why not? If I want to spend my money with that man that owns a restaurant in another state, why shouldn't he be able to send me what he's got?
Yeah.
Let us figure it out.
Yeah. Let's figure it out responsibly. Let's make sure IDs are checked. But if you want a bottle of Napa wine or Vita Guadalupe wine in Montana, you should be able to have it. You're a consenting adult.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, I'm kind of at my normal time marker here. Any piece of advice for our listeners? Obviously, your career's been very eclectic, but on the same route, I could almost see you followed a trajectory to a degree that got you where you're at today. Any advice for people that are just starting out or are looking to get into the VC world?
I'll say kind of one broad and one more small and tactical. The small and tactical is like there is a lot of seduction to going to work for the startup, and if that's your bent, do it at some point. But there is absolutely something to be said for spending some time in a really first-class organization. Mm-hmm. You will learn more. You will make more. You'll make more connections. You will be in a place where you can make mistakes, and it won't be the end of the world. You'll find mentors, and frankly, like when I speak on panels about innovation, go spend someone else's money before you want to go spend your investors' money. And so that's kind of the really tactical one. Work for a good company for a while. Learn. The broader one is kind of back to what I said at the beginning. Like, be curious, be genuinely curious. People will open up when no one can help themselves, and you're an example of this, Jim. When you're genuinely curious about the people you have on your show, it's impossible not to open up. It's impossible not to be honest and forthright. And if you can master that skill, you'll get endless opportunities, because if you learn about what people want and you help them get what they want, they will do it for you. And it's not a quid pro quo thing. It's just the way that humans work. The more you do it, the more successful you'll be. Human nature, we want to help one another out. It's just human nature, whatever it is. That's why I say when I go over to the Equestrian Center, we're just BSing, It's like we're just getting to know each other. We're here for each other. That's how the world should be. And again, that's what I hope comes out of COVID, is that we open up as humans more to other humans in a positive manner, not some of the things we're seeing in the news media. You said something just a minute ago. I'm going to reiterate it for the close, and that is take the opportunity to work for a top-notch company at one point in your career. And it's much easier, especially if you're an entrepreneur, to do that younger in life so you can learn some of those skill sets and some of those values of that big company and then go off and be an entrepreneur. I was very fortunate. I worked for In-N-Out Burger for 12 years and learned a lot there and built that foundational element of who I was. And then I was, again, fortunate enough, after a couple other left turns, to work for Kettle One Vodka, another world-class organization. I mean, that place from top to bottom was luxury and style and quality and all those things. And what I was able to do from both those careers is create some successful businesses and ultimately be exactly who I wanted to be, doing what I want to be doing. And there's no exchange for that. And one thing that I've learned, and I'm sure you can back this, is that when you work for companies like this, like those companies and Gallo, and people want to hire you, more often than not, you'll come in way above their expectations, and then it's the real dance, because oftentimes they'll aspire to be that company that you worked for, but they never want to invest the kind of money it takes to become those companies, and you realize how valuable your time was there and how great those companies really, really are. Yeah, and gosh, that's such a great twist on this too. Like I'm so good. I wish I would have thought it myself. You're right. Like the other thing that you get there is not all these wonderful experiences. You get a sense of true north, and you get a sense of value. and which is just as important to have that spidey sense go off when you're not around and say, hey, I shouldn't